Happy hump day, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good one. With me tonight, we have Jim Largo from Largos Lair.
Howdy, howdy.
We are going to explore the world of the lair because I think it's going to get interesting. And it's the only other person that I know of who has $100 words. So break out your thesaurus and dictionary, kids. It's going to get interesting.
Indubitably.
There you go. There's number one.
I love you, Aaron.
You know what? It is what it is. That's who we are.
It's true.
Unfortunately, we don't think in the simpler words. We have to kind of.
That is true.
There's times where I have to think, and I'm like, "What's my audience here? How far low do I have to go?"
Yeah,
Once I figure that out, I'm good. It's just, unfortunately, you use
it's kind of like with
just
it's the Myers-Briggs thing. That's the
Yeah.
socially awkward for me. I need that filter. It's like turn off the thesaurus, speak in the common tongue.
Yeah, exactly. And it gets you in trouble sometimes because somebody looks at you like, they don't know what you said.
Yeah,
And then you have to dumb it down and say it again. And then they're like, oh, well, it lost all meaning at that point because then they're just like, I don't get the joke.
exactly. And sarcasm is a fluent language in my house. Unfortunately, you can't really type that in a chat. So
No, you can't. That's the worst part is you cannot. You can put that little hashtag S, but by that point, they're like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I'm offended. It's like, well, I didn't mean it that way, but okay, yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know you know about Venn diagrams because obviously you know about them.
Do I?
We're going to go over Don McMillan's Geek Nerd Dork, and then we're going to figure out where Mr. Largo fits on this lovely, lovely Venn diagram. So, there's basically three versions of this. You can be a geek, a nerd, or a stalker, or a dork, really. The fourth one is kind of there. I mean, I guess whatever on that one. But generally, if you have a high IQ and you have an obsession, you're considered a geek. If you are a high IQ and you're socially awkward, you're a dork. If you have an obsession and you're socially awkward, generally you're a stalker. Now, all of these can congeal together to make the nerd. So, high IQ, socially awkward, obsessed. There we go. There's your nerd. So, to go from geek to nerd, you just have to figure out how to become socially awkward. Now, I'm sure a traumatic brain injury can cure that right away, or a couple bumps to the head, get a few concussions, you'll be fine. Nothing bad will happen, right?
Wear a helmet, kids.
Then you got, if you want to go from a stalker to a nerd, you just have to improve your IQ. So I guess education is everything. So
It's
remember,
key.
kids, thesaurus, dictionary, break them out. And I'm not sure how going from dork to nerd. I guess you just have to get an obsession. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Whatever. So where do you think you fit on this one?
Oh, I've dabbled in a few. I haven't reached stalker status yet, but I'm still young.
Okay.
I think I'm squarely in nerd. My IQ definitely gets me in trouble. I'm very socially awkward, and I get obsessed about rabbit holes constantly, whether they be toys or stories or what have you. So yeah, nerd it is.
Constantly looking for the next thing to take you down that hole, right?
Exactly.
I think it's just the idle time, probably. Sometimes that just gets to you.
It does.
Yeah.
I retired early and found that the stick song "Too Much Time on My Hands" it's a thing.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah, exactly. As long as it's not Mr. Roboto, you're good.
I could dig a little Mr. I like that video, but
I did. The video was great. Hey, you know what? When I was a kid, we liked sticks. It was good.
Yeah,
good, clean fun. Back in the days.
The
ancient days. Yeah, exactly.
I've always been a sucker for robots, so I have a soft spot.
Yeah, then it's always a fascinating thing to think about.
It is.
You know that I focus on play as an adult and how important it is for us to remain in that playful state of mind. So I'm going to define a play state, and then we're going to talk about it briefly. So it's a state of mind where you're absorbed in an activity that provides enjoyment. That's the critical part of that factor.
Not frustration.
Yeah, not frustration. This should not be making you angry. If toys make you angry, I think you might want to find a new hobby. I'm just saying, if you're always angry about it, probably not the best thing for you to use as a hobby.
That's fair.
The suspension of a sense of time. So, given that definition, so 3 factors: absorbed in it, enjoying it, and you lose track of time. When was the last time that you played?
Actually, earlier today, um,
Yep.
I was hanging with our buddy Ed from Action Figs, or Axion, if you want to be French.
Mhm.
I picked this up recently,
Ah,
and I am a big fan of, drawing, sketching, doodling, and going down the rabbit hole of the history of the original G.I. Joe from '63. This was actually the prototype that Don Levine used after he had talked with Stan Weston, the guy who came up with Captain Action later.
mhm.
There was no such thing as an action figure. There were,
Yeah.
tin soldiers, there were the little plastic green army men, there was Barbie, but there wasn't this. There wasn't an articulated, figure for boys. But he saw this in an art store window. He went and bought a bunch of them, took them back to what was Hassenfeld Brothers, became Hasbro,
Yeah.
and they started figuring out, how do we make this into an action figure? So finding this in the store, here in Guatemala, toys are not prevalent.
Yeah.
It's hard to find stuff.
I can
right?
imagine.
So
It's
finding
hard
something like this, I've just been tinkering with this stupid thing most of the morning because it's just
Yeah.
fun. And yeah, it's easy to lose track of time.
Yeah.
So
And that's
not
what's
necessarily
fun.
a toy per se, but
No, it is. I mean, it's whatever activity that
yeah,
provides those 3 things. It's everybody's is going to be different. Some people it's going to be coloring, some people it's going to be hanging out with their friends, and for some of us in this community, it's playing with our toys.
and
And
I've dabbled in different things. Love painting miniatures. My eyesight these days isn't as acute, so seeing those fine details has become frustrating. So I don't paint
yeah,
as much as I used to. I
it's the
like it.
magnet. You get the magnifying glasses, and then the lights on the side, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
That's
I
what I
need
do
those.
sometimes.
The mad scientist ones that have like the little
Yeah,
lenses on the side, like the
yeah, there you go.
jewelers. Yeah.
Yeah, jeweler's loops. Yeah. So I want you to think about when you were playing as a kid, and I want you to think about the ways that you played. Now, was there structure? Was it unstructured? Was it out? Did you just go out and play? Did you play in the house? How was that play experience for you as a kid?
Well, I'm a child of the '70s. Hardcore Gen Xer. We were latchkey. It was, if it's a Saturday and you don't have school, you're outside, and we might let you in for lunch, drink out of the garden hose, and we'll let you in when the street lights come up. So most of it was outside. I was an only child. I was a military brat. My father was career military, so we traveled every 2 to 3 years to different duty stations. So I spent a lot of time playing alone. Just me, my imagination, my Pooh Bear, that kind of stuff. I learned to read at a pretty young age, so books were a great comfort and solace, be it comic books or book books. And so I've always been much into creating my own little worlds in play with whatever figures were handy, whether it was Fisher
Yeah,
Price Adventure People, which were big as a little kid, the Mego superheroes, loved
yeah.
those. So, yeah,
So
very much so solo
did
play.
everything come together, or did everything have to have its own world?
Uh, at different ages. When I was younger, scale didn't matter. As I got older, the Fisher Price and other things of that scale, be it Star Wars or whatever came along, those kind of had their own world. The Migos were a bit bigger, so they kind of had their own place. Big G.I. Joe 12-inch. He was, him and Steve Austin would kind of hang out. Steve was a little tall, but, we fudged it.
Close enough. Close enough.
Yeah, close enough.
Horseshoes, hand grenades. Close enough. So when you think back to that playing, even though it was, I guess for you, it was a lot of solo play, which is I can relate to that. Um, I wasn't an army brat, but I can relate to the solo play. What did play make you feel as a kid? What were
Oh,
those
it's
feelings
very
like?
much escapism, Um, when you travel as much as you do being a military dependent, you don't set down roots. You're in a new school every couple of years. You're not connecting and being part of the, you're always the new kid, which sucks.
Yeah.
So you kind of develop a thin or a thick skin, and you don't make close connections. So it's very much as the escapism of, not really feeling like I fit somewhere, but making a place in my room, whatever my lair was at the time. And, there you do fit.
Yeah.
Because you're writing the story.
Yeah.
Apologies for the lights flickering. We're having some power brownouts here.
It's third world electrical systems, kids. Third world electrical systems.
Yes, it
That's all I
is.
gotta say.
The joys of being an expat. They're not all glamour and banana daiquiris.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? Cost of living, you can't complain about too much, though.
That is true.
So, if I was going to run away, I would definitely run away to some place where I could afford to live.
There's a few out here.
Yeah, exactly. So, in thinking on those feelings, when was the last time you had those feelings as an adult?
Hopefully pretty recently. I jokingly called it, the Lemony Snicket effect of the series of unfortunate events. It's been kind of my life lately, between, power fluctuations, economy fluctuations. I've been taking on some extra burdens in adult stuff. I have a friend who's out of the country. He has 6 dogs. I'm dog sitting those 6 dogs. I have 3 dogs.
That's a lot of dogs.
Yeah, it's a lot of dogs.
Starting your own farm.
Pretty much. It's I have a pack. Just about.
You do.
So it's a lot of pooper scooping and feeding and watering, and time gets away from you. I love the dogs, but yeah, it gets a little aggravating. So yes, I do like to escape into the lair and zone out on a display or tinker with something.
Okay. So how do you play with your toys now versus when you played with them as a child? Is there any crossover play pattern, or is it just, I kind of noticed that everything's got the same scale behind you. It's all kind of scale. Does it bother you if they were 2 different scales on the same shelf?
Not really. I mean, like, I have some 112 here. I've got a plush animal. I do try to scale things together as far as setting up. I look at each shelf as its own mini diorama. I try to create a background or some sort of physical presence, and then I put things on the shelf according to. This is usually like what's on camera, so whatever is topical. I was talking about Joe last night with some of the guys, so this just gets rotated to whatever the topic is.
Okay.
But as far as play, probably less sound effects, but more toy photography. That's pretty much the only difference.
Oh, so instead of a boom and pow, it's click, click,
Click. Yep.
click, click.
Channeling my inner Peter Parker.
You know what? We all got to do that every once in a while.
Yeah.
So when you were a kid, who won the most battles? The good guys or the bad guys?
Honestly, the bad guys. I've always been kind of a bad guy.
There you go.
It's been said they have the coolest uniforms. They usually have the coolest cars and space shuttles or whatever they're cruising around in. I always root for the bad guys. I don't know why. I like monsters. I like baddies.
The funny thing is that they always made the bad guys cool, and the good guys were okay, but the bad guys were cool. It was like, they
were kind of vanilla sometimes. It's
they
were. I like the devil's food cake.
There you go. So you kind of briefly touched on your childhood toy lines, like the Adventure People. Mm-hmm. Any other toy lines that kind of influenced your childhood?
Yeah, Fisher Price Adventure People were the first ones I really remember cherishing because they were just cool and indestructible and totally about world building. It was just like, here's Sue and Sally and Bob, and go have a fun adventure. Go figure it out. But GI Joe, the original, well, original to me, the '70s Joe, the Adventure Team. These guys were probably the ones that got played with the most. I had several of these. Again, Dad being military, he understood that these were cool. Had a lot of different uniforms and outfits and sets for adventure.
Yeah, and that was just their response. I mean, realistically, that was them trying to branch it strictly out of a military brand. Because the bad taste in the mouth of the general public for military at that time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That was them trying to find a way to make them still make the toys, but make them less quote unquote military.
Right. In '64, people still had a pride in the military when Joe came out. But when I came along, when I was old enough to appreciate them, they had moved into the Adventure Team era, more adventurer, less soldier.
Yeah.
Which I liked better because it was that idea of, he's going on a safari, he's going to go dig up a mummy, or he's going to run into the Wolfman or the Loch Ness Monster. You never know.
Yeah, it was a little more, I think it was a little more imaginative.
Yeah.
Because just a strict military line, it has one purpose. But an Adventure Team, he can do this and he can do that. And you have all of this dynamism that's not present in just that strictly military line.
And it was kind of interesting in that pivot. Joe's enemies weren't necessarily other people. The villains were oftentimes, a wild animal or, a natural disaster, something like that. So it was a definite change in perspective.
Yeah. So have you gone back and gotten any of your adventure people, or did they make it through childhood to your adulthood?
Sadly, no. None of my original toys made it through. Again, part of being in a military living, if it doesn't fit in the ditty bag, it doesn't go to the next duty station. So my toy collection was often culled in a garage sale, flea market, something every few years, much to my chagrin. So my parents were very much the hold on loosely kind of people. A lot of casualties along the way. As an adult, I started getting back into a few things out of nostalgia. Superpowers, the Kenner originals from the '85. I really love those. I was a big comic book geek as a kid. This is probably the third iteration of a collection. I had one when I was younger. Sold that off when I went active duty military and didn't have a place to put stuff. Went through a rather painful divorce and got rid of my second collection and most everything else.
Yeah.
And then went through a minimalist phase of just, I'm going to go travel, explore, find a new place, and just wanted to travel lightly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to collect stuff again. Sitting here we are a few years later.
Exactly. We say that to ourselves, and I think a lot of that is, you know what, I think as we collect, we realize how heavy that collection ends up being.
It can
in a way be. Because I go back to this line in Fight Club: the stuff you own ends up owning you.
That's true. That is definitely true.
It's such an accurate portrayal of us in this consumer front first, makeup, is that we do end up, being owned by the stuff that we buy.
Yeah, and again, as you pointed out, if it's not fun, it becomes a burden.
Yeah,
there was a point with it, life events. There wasn't joy in collecting those things at that moment, not because of the things themselves, but just circumstantially.
Yeah, and that's how that happens sometimes. It's like, right now for me, my collection is what it is, but I'm really not getting much, and then most of the stuff that I got was stuff that I paid for, 18 months ago, or more in some cases. But
I'm still waiting on stuff from last year's Joe Fest to make it here. One of the unfortunate events is after the coof, the virus and all that shenanigan, shipping went up through the roof here.
Yeah,
trying to get anything imported. So when I buy toys, I have to buy them usually online or through a friend. They've got to go through Miami, from Miami to a third party shipping company that brings it here to Guatemala. And now there's extra taxes and tariffs that weren't there before. So it has definitely curtailed my collecting.
Government always has to get theirs one way or the other.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what government.
And it's always temporary until we get through these trying times. And
No, it's never temporary. They can say it's temporary as much as they want.
Pretty much.
So we are going to look at, hopefully I got this set up right. We're going to look at your current stuff that you sent me. Now we'll go through this. And
do you want to say hi to the chat before we do that?
Yeah, probably should. We've got quite a few people here, and I know there's quite a few people on your channel too. So say hi to Oz. What's up, Oz? Yeah. Bud, Lawrence, how are you, sir? Nolan, we're official. We're official. Carol's here. Hello, Carol. My name twin is here, or at least he was. Born is here. And no, I'm not even going to try Shmebulok. Okay, there we go. See? Sorry, I don't do foreign language.
I think it's a Gravity Falls reference.
I'm sure it is. It would make sense. That would,
Yes,
we love that show, so we had to watch that quite a bit. Will is here. Your cohort in crime.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite carbon-based life forms.
Brick something is here. What's up, Brick?
Groovy.
Keith Knight is here. How goes? And Woodman 29. I know I saw somebody else. I got another one. What's up, Woodman? Epic Badger is here. What's up? And I think that's everybody.
I believe so. Yeah, kind of trying to keep an eye on it in the corner of my eye as we chat, but
yeah, it is what it is. Let me try this again. All right, we'll go here. We'll go here. We'll go share. All right. So you sent me all these. You have a coffee troll. Fantastic.
Everyone should. Protects my coffee cup.
You know what? You have kind of this electric thing. You got Gleek, and you got an alien, and a Boglin, all in the brass car.
That's it. That's the Boglemobile. They have, fun adventure, kind of like a Thelma and Louise thing, but with less femininity.
There you go. That is an odd pairing, to say the least. Just say it. Odd pairing.
It's true.
And then you have a swarm trooper apparently shooting at your troll. So
well, they're very aggressive.
Yeah, I know. They can be. They can be. All right. Now here's your Justice League. Now, is this DC Universe?
Most of these are Mezco with a little bit of DC Mattel, DC Universe.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the Robin looks like the way that the thigh is cut.
Yep. Unfortunately, they haven't made a decent Dick Grayson Robin in Mezco. But Super Friends, I was a big fan. Comic books were big. I did some Marvel, but a lot of it was DC as a kid. So
yeah. And it's those things that make us, and whatever resonates with us. Now that Hal, is that a Mezco?
That is. They did a Hal Jordan a few years back, along with.
I say it looks like more like a modern styled Hal than it does that.
Mezco has that thing where they kind of Mezcofy. They kind of put their spin on the uniforms. Sometimes cool. Sometimes
I'm looking at that leg with the green wrap, and I'm like, that doesn't look right.
Yeah. It's not one of their better ones, but I needed him to complete the core kingdom.
You gotta have the core kingdom. That's not.
Yeah.
Now, this Batmobile, where did this come from?
That, I believe, was a Spin Master for their 12-inch line, but it's it's kind of one of those where there's not much of an interior. You can shove a 12-inch figure in, but it's not like he's really sitting in it.
Yeah.
But it fits really good for these Mafex 1/12 scale. So I use it as a prop.
I love that Harley Quinn. The Harley Quinn's amazing.
Those, that's from the Injustice line from SH Figure Arts a few years back. I love that zoot suit look on the Joker. It just fits.
Yeah, it does.
And so I do kind of mix and match, at least different storyline wise. I really like those premium figures from Japan. They're really well articulated. They've got the cloth capes, cool bits,
and they're wired, and
yes,
and that's
they're premium priced, but I just reached a point with Marvel Legends, and then when Mattel lost the contract and it went to Toddy Mack and he took over DC and changed the scale and gave everybody diapers, it's like I'm not feeling it. So
yeah, it's rough. Honestly, I have quite a few McFarlane figs, but I can say honestly, 90% of them were bought on clearance.
Yeah, his monster figures are great. Like I have his Swamp Thing he did. I love that one. He does monsters well.
Yeah, the mega figs are great for the most part. The Killer Croc is fantastic. Yep. He just is. The problem is that they end up being really top heavy because of how much plastic is in that upper body.
And God bless him, he gives toe articulation to everything, and it's like a lot of these figures don't need it, and it makes them very unstable. You got to have a stand, and the stands he gives you are not really the greatest. So
no, as long as you don't want to move the legs and you want them to stand their stiff leg, they work perfect.
Right.
So that's
dynamic posing is not a big thing for him.
No, it's not. He didn't. You try to dynamically pose those figures, they're falling over every time.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what stand you have them on, unless you have one that's like clamped around their back and pre-weighted behind them. Then
pretty much.
So this is your Shazam with Billy Batson.
Yep.
So I'm assuming that's Mezco, right?
That is Mezco. The Billy, I think, was DC Direct. And I loved Shazam. There was a really cheesy TV show in the 70s, live action, that was fun. He had a cartoon for a minute. He was definitely fun in the comic books. Something about that idea of, a kid like us at that time being able to tap into this superhero ability was always a great power fantasy thing.
Yeah. Escapism at its finest, right? Just
absolutely.
You getting the superpowers and what would you do with them kind of thing.
Exactly.
I think the Shazam movie that they made, I think the first movie played with that quite a bit. And I think that's what made there's certain areas of it really endearing.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't a well-made movie, but just watching, as he gets the powers and he's playing with them and he's messing around and he creates all this chaos. That's exactly what a kid would do with those.
Yeah.
First time that they would mess with it, they'd totally mess things up, and everybody would be like, yeah, he's kind of an idiot. So
pretty much
are I'm assuming this is a mix of Legends and Mezco. Maybe?
These are all they're either SH Figure Arts or Mafex. I can't remember which line, but they did a line of those from the Avengers film. I think they're Mafex. But yeah, I collect the core team and Nick Fury. I really like these. Great head sculpts. Just, I really liked that. Pretty much everything in MCU up to Avengers. Civil War was good. Then it kind of started going downhill. Started getting a little silly.
Pretty much Endgame for me was the end. It's not that the bad movies after that are bad. It's just, I think it's one of those instances where I think they shot their load too quickly.
Yes.
Even though it was 10 years.
Right.
11 years. But I think that should have been a little bit further down the line. But I know because the actors were getting older and they needed to get it done.
Well, that plus I'm sure as they gain notoriety or fame, the paychecks got thicker. So they couldn't afford to keep doing these.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were so many great stories in the Marvel lore that never got touched. We never got a good Cap and Falcon buddy cop kind of movie.
No.
We got Winter Soldier, but it was not.
It didn't feel like it. No, it didn't feel like it. Yeah. No.
There were a lot more Avengers stories they could have told about the team that they just kind of rushed through to get to Infinity War. And it's like, what's the rush?
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of that is just them trying to get it done, get it quick, and get it out. Because they were.
Yeah.
And the thing was, is they were banking, and now they're seeing diminished returns, and they're like, oh, well, maybe we don't need to put out 4 movies a year. Well, no shit.
That plus when you kill off most of your core characters, Cap's gone, Iron Man's gone, Thor is kind of like become a hippie. I don't know.
He's hanging. He's hanging around. We'll leave it at that. He's hanging around still.
Right. So, I mean, Marvel is known for their characters having a lot of, personal issues, which is part of the characterization, but they kind of went a little far in the film to the point of, yeah, they're train wrecks. So,
yeah. Now here's your Superman and Crypto.
Love me some doggos. Crypto's a favorite.
It's one of those things that it's always interesting to see when they would do something like this, where they would bring in this, it's this dog. It's a dog.
Oh, yeah. It's a sidekick.
Dog from Krypton. Okay.
Yeah. That was one thing I wish they kind of alluded to the idea that, Kal-El or Clark had a dog as a kid on the Smallville farm in the original, well, not original, but the movies that were big in the 70s with Christopher Reeve. I would love to have seen a Christopher Reeve Superman Crypto scene in the Fortress.
And that would have been fun. I mean, it definitely would be better than Superman 4.
Oh, yeah. So
actually,
bad.
There's so many bad movies of superheroes too, and it's sad because that there's enough information and enough backstory that they could make fantastic movies sometimes, but you would think by the time they try to translate it, they water it down so much that it loses kind of its impact.
That's the thing. It's like we have 50, 60 years of great comic book writing. You don't have to write a script. Just pick one of those books and you make a screenplay. Exactly. You don't have to put your spin on it. I didn't come to see Christopher Nolan's Batman. I came to see Batman.
Yeah. And it's not, it is what it is. I mean, DC, unfortunately, they can't seem to get their plans right with movies.
I have hopes.
I am hopeful now that James Gunn is in charge. So, that he knows how to make a good movie. He can make some bad ones.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, there's always that specific James Gunn kind of feel to the movies that he does.
Yeah. I really liked what he did, his spin on Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't want to see Superman as Guardians of the Galaxy. No. I want to see a return to noble, gee whiz Clark Kent, good guy, Superman.
Affable Clark Kent with confident Superman. That kind of.
Yeah, I think James Gunn could make that happen. Whether he will or not, I don't know.
I think he will. I
hope so.
If you kind of look at I don't know if you've ever seen the Peacemaker television show.
I haven't.
He can do that affable and serious, and it really comes off as something interesting. I enjoyed the show immensely. There was a lot of laughs in it.
Cool.
Now, here's your Scooby and Shaggy. Now, I'm wondering where you got the Scooby and Shaggy from.
There was a movie called Scoob with an exclamation point a few years ago.
Yeah.
And these were figures that came out from that. I picked up the Mystery Machine and, the two main characters. And they just kind of show up randomly in shots here and there because they're 112-ish scale. So they fit with a lot of stuff.
They are the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
So let's be honest, they're still relevant even now today. I mean,
absolutely.
The assumption was that Shaggy was always the stoner and Scoob was just his stoner dog.
And
and they were always hungry.
Yeah.
But let's always hungry.
I love the fact that they always kind of showed up in the Hanna-Barbera crossover stuff. They showed up with the Harlem Globetrotters. They showed up with Batman. I think they even hung out with Kiss once.
Yeah.
But it's like, so it very much fits in the layer.
They've done wrestlers and other things. And so, I mean, there's an interesting play with that. And specifically with the Scooby-Doo and that universal kind of boy and his dog. Yes.
Love that Don Johnson movie, by the way. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have seen it. Yeah. That is, it's almost as bad as Soylent Green. There's some tragedies in both of those movies.
It is dark, but the essence of a boy and his dog, it's very it makes sense.
I'm fine until we get to the milking part, and then it's going to start getting weird.
Yeah.
I can't do this no more. But I've seen it a few times. Yeah. I watched that quite a bit. Now you
I
got
like
your
cheesy cinema.
Force and your Timber.
It's an honest mistake, you know. He looks like a yellow fire hydrant.
I can see. I'm not blaming Timber, not the least bit. Here's your Swarm. This is the limited edition one, the BotCon version.
Yep, that is the Wasp.
Yeah,
Guy.
I sold that to Travis, Mr. Wonderful,
Cool.
from my collection. I mean, it wasn't doing anything for me, so.
Yeah, it's kind of a vague homage to a Transformer, but
Yeah.
I like the color scheme, and it fit well with the flame background. So just having some fun with colors there.
Oh, there's your Sarge with Cap Spike.
It totally fits. I can totally see the Sarge.
Yeah, riding into that World War II,
tinkering on an old bike, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So he commandeered it. It's his bike now, which kind of works too. I think Bobby Vella designed that bike.
Yeah. Then here's now this bike, I'm not sure where it comes from.
That came from a really Blink and You'll Miss It Wildcats toy line.
Okay, I have those. Yeah, I had Playmates. It was made by Playmates. It was in the 90s.
Yeah, I liked the design. It kind of has that OD green, super futuristic kind of look. And that's one of my Kit Bash mercenaries. He's part Marvel Legends, part Valaverse. So I really got into kit bashing with a lot of those because they're super easy to take apart and kind of make your own.
So it makes it a lot easier. The only worst thing about Marvel Legends is nothing's universal. It's classified, nothing's universal. You have to do adjustments every time.
Absolutely.
You know, I love Mythic Legions and Cosmic Legions for that specific reason is I don't have to do any extra prep work. But
pop and swap.
If I'm doing a custom with, like when I was doing the custom that I was doing for Emerald Night Photos John, I had a head that was from a McFarlane figure.
Really? I guess it would scale well.
And it did okay because it was a robot, and because it was actually a bigger figure, it was like 7 inches, 6.5, close between 6.5 and 7 inches tall anyway. So it scaled all right with it. But underneath, I had to put epoxy sculpt into the head so that it fit, and so that you could snap off the head and put the head back on without worrying too much about it. But it was one of those times where, any of those heads where there's not that great interchange and the balls are different, you're going to have to mess with it.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating. That's where a lot of the clearance figures make me happy when I can find it's like it was not a great figure, but I like the head sculpt. Can I use that to make a custom guy somewhere? I'll buy a figure just for the head sometimes if it's cheap enough.
Yeah, exactly. I'm that way too, or at least I was. Not buying many day figures now. You have a Jason Momoa in the middle.
I do. I liked him in Stargate, the Atlantis. I can't remember the name of his character, but that was kind of what I based this on. I found a Mezco head from a Snyderverse Aquaman that kind of fit with the Action Force body, made him one of my mercenaries hanging out with Duster and the gang. So
now here's your interesting Humvee with everybody outloaded and everybody's got their packs. Now I'm wondering, where are they going to put all them backpacks?
Not in that Humvee. To me, the Delta figures are they're like the modern Little Green Army men. I love these guys.
Yeah,
they're just the OD green kind of style. I bought a bunch of them, as you can see, and they're kind of my main force for backup for the Action Force. The Humvee is actually like a 1/10 scale, but it's close enough, and they'll fit in there. It's an RC car.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, RCs their scales are off. They're not.
They are.
They say if they say they're 112, they're not. Go to the 110. If they say they're 118, you got to go probably to the 112.
Don't trust what it says on the 10. You gotta,
the same thing with like motorcycles. I was looking for motorcycles for my dreadnoughts, and I would find, 1/12 scale supposedly.
Right.
And then you get it, and the only person that can fit on it is your female character because
Exactly.
the males are just massive on it. It's like, no, that's not gonna work. So luckily I only bought one of those, and then after that I just started finding 110, and I was good.
I found with scales, at least with 1/12 scale specifically, and somewhat to 1/10, there's a difference between like the true 1/12 scale, which is
Yeah.
what you get with a lot of the Japanese imports,
Yep.
like those motorcycles, and then Marvel Legends, Valaverse, some of the other figure lines. They're more of a heroic 1/12, so they're more
Exactly. Yeah.
a little more beefy. So yeah,
Yeah.
the proportions are not quite true. If you stacked up 12, it'd make one person kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating when you're trying to find accessories.
Exactly. That's why you end up making them. I mean, 9
Yeah.
times out of 10, you end up making them because you don't have any other options. I mean, you could go and pay somebody to 3D print stuff for a ridiculous price if you want.
It's getting better. I mean, there are a
It's
lot of third party guys who see the value in dioramas, display building, toy photography. So stuff's popping up. Not easy to get where I live, but there are ways.
Yeah.
By hook, by crook.
Sometimes that's the only way we go. And there's your swarm troopers.
Yep. I love the design on those. They're fun.
Now, was this the stuff that you picked up at Joe Fest, or are this originals?
That is a custom. Once I started delving into the big 1/6 Joes again, I hadn't had any in my collection for many, many years. Got some nostalgia. Ed and a couple of other guys introduced me to the Axis of Awesome, which is kind of a collection of creative minds who make customs, rebuild, and refurbish old 70s and 80s Joes. So I started a quest to build my own new adventure team based on what I had as a kid. I call it AT-76. 76 was kind of the year I was really into it. Plus, Spirit of 76. So I wanted a Bullet Man. An original Bullet Man is really expensive now, unfortunately, and brittle. They're hard to find one in one piece.
Yeah.
So I kit bashed one together, and that was kind of him in progress. The other is Mike Power, the Atomic Man. Kind of the $6 million man knockoff that Hasbro did. He's fun. So
Gap After Dark lets you know that it was Ronan Des.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Ronan. Love that character.
Ronan Dex. Okay.
Dex. Yes. I liked him in that. I thought that was a good role.
I think he's got a good charisma to him, so there's a lot of stuff that he does that I like. So
there is rumor Gunn might cast him as Lobo. I could totally see that.
And that one would work for him. That would be 100% him. This is your crypto crew.
Yeah, that's kind of a new off branch. I live in a place where there's bountiful Maya ruins. So I was like, I like cryptos. We have, some things here like the Chupacabra and La Llorona. And it's like, I'd like to build kind of a subset of guys who just hunt critters, So got to have a Native American, an indigenous on the team. So he's kind of their tracker. Haven't named him yet, but he was based on they kind of did this weird line of 12-inch Joes that were kind of based on real American 3 3/4 Joes with a few other weird characters. This one was called Dart in that line. He's kind of like Spirit Iron Knife, but not.
Yeah.
But, fun design. Something different than a typical Joe. I like the inclusion of having other, ethnicities in the line other than just
diversity is always a good thing. I mean, that way you can see themselves as those characters, and I think a lot of toy manufacturers have finally figured that out.
That's true. And with indigenous peoples, there's so much lore in their beliefs and stories about mythic creatures and creation stories. So it totally fits to me with somebody who's hunting cryptids.
There you go.
You gotta have a dinosaur. He's freaking
Um,
Joe, man. He's got to have a dino.
you know what? It's a cool look. But how big is it? Is that the Indominus one?
That is the
That
Indominus from Jurassic Park,
so
and he's
that's the big ass one. Okay.
yeah, that's the biggest one that I have been able to find, and he's just the right size for
That's all. Yeah.
12-inch to mount him and be the great white hunter.
Now you
So
just need to get him a little saddle and some side
it's
bags, and you're good.
it's on my list. There are some great craftsmen here in Guatemala. I haven't quite made up the wherewithal to find somebody, bring the freaking dinosaur and go, can you make a leather saddle for this for me? And just, you got to get past that. There's some tequila involved.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure there's
But
some
it's going to happen.
transactions in there. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Does the dog in the back have a helmet on his head?
He has like welding goggles. I call him.
Okay, I was like, is he wearing a helmet?
He is my adventure dog.
Okay.
This was a sculpt that I found from Big Bad Toy Store. They have a few 1/6 scale things,
Yeah,
and
I'm
it's
gonna
made of like
solo
a.
you so you can show him.
Oh, okay. It's made of like a resin. Whoops.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I popped my mic off my lapel there. Too many wires. But yeah, he's a German Shepherd, and he's
okay.
kind of like got this post-apocalyptic body armor on and a backpack. I'm like, that's totally screams adventure team.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's part of my cryptid team. He's their super doggo, and I look, there's like, yeah, I gotta have that.
It's always nice to find those like weird things.
Absolutely.
When you find them and it's just like, yeah, I don't know what I would do with that, but I know I need it.
Yep. Same with the little. That's my Guatemalan gremlin. He came from a line of
Your plunderling, yeah.
Plunderlings. I love those.
Yeah.
I wish I'd gotten more. I only picked up the one just to try it out.
Yeah.
Didn't know what to do with him. He just kind of randomly sat on different shelves. And then when I started putting the cryptid crew together, it's like I've often joked about my electrical and internet problems as having Guatemalan gremlins. So he is the Guatemalan gremlin.
There you go.
He kind of helps the team, but he's more like Slimer. He's a pain in the butt. So
he's not the problem solver. He is the problem.
Yes. Every team needs that one snarf or other mascot. So he's kind of theirs.
He's the comic relief. There you go.
Yep.
All right. I think that was everything you sent me.
Yeah, I just grabbed some random stuff from, things I tinker with.
So in your collection, you kind of have an eclectic one. You have 60s, 70s, 80s. I don't know if you have any 90s.
A smattering. I have like some gargoyles. I have some D&D stuff. But yeah, it's more 70s, 80s centric because that's more of what I was into as a kid.
So do you prefer the established kind of characters and lore? Is it an established franchise for you to go in on it, or is it just sometimes it's how it looks, how it seems?
It's very tactile. If a character feels good in my hand, that's one of the reasons I prefer the Valaverse over some of the Hasbro. The plastic feels better. They just don't feel gummy. They have a good feeling. You can get them in a pose. So while I do like the Valaverse lore that Bobby's been creating, I love the idea of blank slates. With some of these troopers, you can create your own stories. They'll definitely be mixing it up with Monster Force whenever that comes out, because I love the idea of monsters and military.
You saw the two clear figures or the transparent that are coming for Joe Fest.
Yep. My buddy Wilhelm will be there, so hopefully he'll be able to snag me some stuff. Yeah.
I don't know what it is about transparent, translucent figures that are just interesting.
Translucent and glow in the dark. I'm a sucker for those.
Yeah. My only issue is that I know that those are going to be more brittle just because of the way the plastic is. Like the Marvel Legends Iceman that I had, I bought one and I bought it from Rogue Toys, and I literally put them on blast because it came in and his butt has got a crack in it that's about, I don't know, half an inch or so.
So annoying when
They're
you
like, you
pull them out of the
should have
package.
just let us know, and we would have replaced it. So they sent me the next one, and that
Oh, that's
one
cool.
had a crack on the other side. So I just swapped legs, and it's like, fine.
Yeah,
It is what it is. I got a full ice man now. His ass isn't broken. We're good.
that's it.
It's just one thing about those translucent figures. It's one of those annoying things.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, very eclectic. I do like some lines just to collect. I'm not really a teetotaler anymore. I'm not one of those. I've got to have the whole line. Valverse is probably the closest because I like all of their sculpts. But I've fallen behind on some of those series, just budgetary. I can't afford to buy all the figures anymore.
well, I mean, honestly, you already have all the figures. Let's be honest.
No, I don't. I don't have.
You just have to repaint them, and then you will have them all.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, a lot of the body molds are very similar. Although Series 5, some new bodies are coming.
I'm just saying, in general.
That's true. But
all you got to do is break out the paintbrush, and you can have any figure you want.
It does go to the ingenuity of a new toy line. Parts and molds are expensive, so getting the best bang for your buck, and Marvel Legends and everybody else has reused molds forever.
Yeah.
But how creative can you be?
Exactly.
So and with military lines, you can get away with that because they're military. They wear military uniforms. Yeah.
When you start getting into like the more odd things, that's when it becomes a little more difficult to reuse those parts.
The toughest thing was female bucks and different body types, and he's addressing that now with Series 5. Series 3, I think, was the females, and Series 5 is going to be bigger bucks, different body shapes. So he's getting there.
Yeah, it takes time, and I think that there's almost people that companies like AWOC where they went back and did a Kickstarter so they could get the rest of their bucks, and I don't have an issue with that. I think that's a fantastic way, and that lets the fans know that, hey, you're paying for this, we're going to use it. This isn't this is about making the line better in the long run, and I think that's a good thing.
And anthropomorphic creatures are great for fitting into any kind of world building.
Exactly.
They can be sci-fi, they can be fantasy. You can go with the AWOC storyline that they're doing with their comics, or you can just have them as a Wookiee.
Exactly. They fit. And that's the funny thing is when you get those lines that fit everywhere, it's great.
I think that's why I like monsters and critters, because they do fit with whatever story you want to tell.
Yeah. They can be bigger, they can be smaller, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They don't have to be that stuck level of things.
Right. So, I'm not such a teetotaler. I have to have perfect scale for everything.
I don't have that, but I definitely on the same shelf, I can't do it. Now, as a kid, I didn't care. Everybody played with everybody. Thundercats were sitting on the flag.
Right.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter. They were the alien invaders.
It's got to be close.
We're covered.
Yeah.
We're covered. But now it's just that eye test when you look at it. And even when I have like an ogre scale figure on the same shelf as a regular mythic or cosmic legions, I look at it and it's like you got this dwarfing massive thing standing behind everybody. To me, that always reminds me of just like that, you got that big guy standing behind you and the lights come on. It highlights his shadow when you see it over you.
I think that's one that I kind of like that. I'm not quite on the spectrum, but I'm that guy that if the books on the shelf don't line up, I'll line them up.
Yeah.
Or at least bring them all flush to the edge. I think it's a mistake a lot of collectors make is they feel like I have to put everything on the shelf. So you have this forest of plastic. Yeah. And it's like, you can't appreciate it. So I've learned to take things off the shelf and only put back what fits a scene. And then the rest of them go in the bin or on another shelf.
And that's the way that I do my dioramas are specifically for that reason is because I don't want it just to be everybody standing at attention with their arms at the side or having their gun in their hand or having their weapon in their hand or flying. It just it creates that, to me, it creates that stagnant look in my collection. And if I wanted a static collection, I'd just go get pictures.
Yeah. Sometimes I do vanilla poses out of necessity, like when I'm just throwing stuff.
Well, I mean, those are narrow shelves, so it's not like you can do a whole
But on the other side of the layer, yeah, things are laid out a little better. Usually, sometimes it's chaos because when you're doing a photo shoot or you're setting up for a video, you're grabbing things from here and there and you're talking. And usually they go back where they belong. Sometimes you just like right now, I have a big clutter on my table that I should have.
Sometimes they just stay by your hand, and
Yep.
they look over at you. I got my Street Fighter figures back there and a couple more AWOCs back there, and then on the shelf I have my Cosmic Legions and a couple Mythic Legions figures, and my Sun Wukong on that shelf. It all fell over the other day. I haven't had a chance to put it back up.
Yeah, I have had that problem too. With the heat here, some of the guys have gotten a little loose in the joints and they want to, make a head dive. So yeah, I need to buy some more figure stands.
On my shelves, what I did, I think I mentioned it last week, is I get those double-sided Velcro man strips. And I bought like a 36-48 sheet of PET plastic.
Oh yeah.
And all I do is I pull that out, I snap it in, and my other two sides are already covered, usually by foam board because of the background of the diorama. So I just put that up there, and I can still see everything, but nothing tends to fall out because it's put in front of the dio, in between the shelf and the dio. So if anything falls, it just falls into that, and I don't lose pieces.
I have been using this stuff. It's called tacky wax. Some people call it museum wax.
Yeah.
And it's worked pretty well, but the temperatures here have been over 100.
When it starts to melt,
it's starting to get, so I'm going to have to get more figure stands. A lot of figures.
You could always get blue sticky tack, the Loctite kind, and try that.
Yeah.
It's like a silly putty. It should work.
I have a lot of clear acrylic shelves, though, so I wanted something that wasn't going to stay on the shelf.
Yeah.
So the sticky tack has been working, but it's a work in progress.
So does the community kind of influence any of your toy buying decisions sometimes?
Kinda. I'm in a couple of different circles. So for me, being a stranger in a strange land, people here don't talk toys or English. So,
that always complicates things.
Yeah.
No habla español, please.
Yeah, they didn't grow up with the same cultural icons. They didn't watch the same cartoons for the most part. So the friends that we have in the online community, they're the people I can share my joy of stuff with. And sometimes seeing what other people are picking up, FOMO is a thing. I hate exclusives because that makes it doubly hard for somebody outside of the normal shopping zones to pick up stuff. But I get by, a little help from friends. If I put out the call to the collectors out there, somebody knows I'm looking for something, they'll keep an eye.
And that's the good thing, is that we have all those people that, hey, I don't mind doing that, and that's cool. So
it's been really
you have
helpful.
a question from Lax Sidrak, I believe. He is asking.
Oh, hey, Lax. I'm doing.
Asking how you doing?
I'm swell. I'm waiting for the swelling to go down.
Yeah, that'll work out. That'll work out. So, go back up. This is what happens when I'm having to use the second screen, and it's literally on the other side, and I can't directly line side it, so I have to do this. Now, you mentioned that you've done 3 different collections over your life.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you the first collection, let's go from the first collection to your current collection and kind of talk about the patterns that you had, as far as we kind of discussed that you got rid of one in a divorce, but what were the things that brought you back to collecting each time?
I think that desire for escapism, nostalgia, the usual touchstones. I worked after I got into the military as a office manager for a company where they were 24/7. I was working sometimes 12, 14, 16-hour days, depending on demands. I was getting stressed and just kind of randomly went into a toy aisle one day and found, what was it I found? There hadn't been anything really cool in the way of like Super Friends in a while. and they came out with these horrific total justice figures for
Oh yeah.
heavily muscled, over sculpted. But it was like, hey, it's Superman. I haven't seen Superman on
It was
shelf
the
in forever.
90s. It was the 90s.
Yes.
Let's be honest. It was the 90s, and that's kind of
Yeah.
the 90s.
Extreme.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Everything was big and puffy and oversized. It was like really in the 80s you had maybe Black Star and Masters of the Universe where they were overly muscled. But then when you got to the 90s, it was like everybody had to have these big Hulk,
yes,
Hulk Hogan size
right,
muscles, and it's just
super
like
sculpted. Right. Yeah, it was like it was a thing. But yeah, it's just like it just kind of hit me. So I bought the ones I could find, and I just put a little shrine together on a shelf. It's just like, yeah, this reminds me of the comics I used to love. I love these characters, the primary colors.
Yeah.
That kind of got me into my first collection as an adult. And then from there, I started dabbling. I didn't really go deep into vintage stuff because I didn't have the time. I didn't really have the budget. But, you know, Dark Knight collection stuff that came out from Kenner for the first Batman movie, those you could still find at a decent price back then. Batman the Animated Series, those started coming around. I dabbled in little things like that here and there that caught my interest. Because it wasn't quite the stuff I had as a kid, but it hit that same
right
vibe.
Notes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's always us. I think us as collectors, we try to reconnect kind of with that inner child. And I think we do that through the toys, but we also do that as a way to bring us back to that innocence.
Yeah.
As we have it as a child. And we want that moment of I'm not having to worry about paying rent or mortgage or bills or any of that other stuff. And it gives us that momentary relief.
Exactly.
However
Actually,
brief it may be.
that was more my second collection. Sorry. My first collection, I still was into Kenner Superpowers. And I had most of those, not the super expensive ones. Like I never found Cyborg or a lot of the ones from the third line that were really up there. But the core group I had. I collected a lot of comic books back then. I had boxes and boxes. So when I went active duty, I sold all that stuff off because, you know,
you're not going to
know
haul
where
that
to keep
around.
it. Yeah,
you don't want to haul that to every new base.
But yeah, so it's really more my second collection. I started more in the 90s stuff because that was what was there, you know, just kind of hit or miss. And then, you know, when I left California and Oregon and the first marriage and started over, just kind of did a clean slate, started working in the mountains of Tennessee where my family's from, started getting really into hiking, but still had that desire to have something. Started picking up a few graphic novels, and of course with that comes the action figure equivalent.
The extension of the figures. It's interesting how that kind of plays into it.
Oh yeah. And I think at that time, Mattel was doing the DC Universe, DC Multiverse stuff. So I was picking up some of the favorites from that line. Sometimes I dabble into some Star Wars stuff, but I'm very much cherry pick. It's like if it's a key character, Bespin Luke, you gotta love Bespin Luke. Or pretty much anything from Empire. That's my favorite film. So
it's the best. I will die on this hill. It is the best movie in the entire series.
I agree.
It's my favorite because of the director. You can tell how much better it is when George doesn't direct a movie.
Yeah, bless his heart. He's got some ideas, but he
is a great ideas man, but he is not a good director. I'm sorry. No. I will die on that hill as well. Fantastic with his ideas, but as far as a director, he's the worst. Because all of his actors, it was like I understand what he was going for. He wanted that 30s Flash Gordon cheesy acting.
Mm-hmm. The dialogue in the 77 was rough.
So bad. It's so bad.
Fun fact, really here about an hour up the road is where they filmed the Yavin base, Yavin 4, versus the original Star Wars at Tikal. I've seen it.
I can imagine it's cool.
Yeah, it's a neat place.
So, any of those toys that brought you back, do you still collect them in any?
Not really. I have, because they were really horrendous figures. It was
They
just,
are, but it's always those touch points, and we kind of,
yeah,
it. I get this moment where every once in a while, I want to buy like a '80s GI Joe O-ring. I get that pull,
yeah, that's fair.
but I'm
Um,
realizing in my head I am not going down that rabbit hole.
exactly.
I stuck with the modern interpretations, with the exception of a couple figures, because I did get 86 Sarge
Okay.
the mail away, and I put him on a card.
Oh, nice.
I ordered a card from a company here called Beggars Canyon Toys, and they give you a bubble, and the bubble's perfect for the the cardboard base, and it worked great. I recarded him. I did a 2000 Law and Order and a 87 Law and Order
Cool.
card, and then I ended up getting a Jinx and a Televiper because I like the Televipers. I can't honestly at the time. I just thought it was the coolest thing because they're the guys that screw with everybody's communications. If you were
Yeah,
really, really wanting to do something, first thing you're going to disrupt is the communications of your other
that's
adversary.
fair. Yeah.
So that's the guys that I don't want to mess with. In the comics when they did when IDW was doing it, they called the guys and were doing all the tech stuff Fobbits, and
Good name.
it's a fantastic idea because those guys are the ones that are I don't want to mess with the guys who do psyops. I don't want to mess with the guys who do the infrastructure and the data maintenance. Those are the guys that can screw your life up pretty well in our modern world.
That's true.
Now, in the 80s, that wasn't as prevalent, but if you think about that now, that's one of the reasons why Psych Out is one of my favorite Joe characters. He
He's one of
shouldn't
mine
be.
too. Yeah.
He shouldn't be. I mean, his figure was cheesy as all get out, but if you realize what psyops does, those are the people you don't screw with. I don't care who you are.
It's like I'm one of those minority people. I love Chuckles because he's an intelligence officer. He's plays, I love that thing of there's a little bit of Miami Vice vibe in there. He's definitely your undercover guy. He pretends to be just a clown, but he's hardcore when
exactly.
When he needs to be.
Yeah,
in the comics especially.
It's always the guys that are like him.
Yeah.
That you need to give a wide berth to because something's not right.
Exactly.
There's something off here. I can't place it, but you go over there. I'm going over here. Yeah. It's always the quiet guys.
I was always drawn to like the oddballs and renegades. Literally, like Sergeant Slaughter's Renegades, his core three he had.
Mercer was I love Mercer. And
I love the idea of a former Cobra who's now working for Joe and loves to hunt Cobra. It's like that's a great character.
It is.
And Red Dog and Taurus, they're just they're just fun.
Brawlers.
They're just like
I
like those kind of guys.
In the movie, I liked Big Lob.
Yeah,
I have no idea why I liked him.
Fun.
And it took them to like 2018 to give him a character, to give him a figure. And I'm like, you put him in a movie, but you didn't give him a figure. And we know why.
Yeah.
They didn't have the diversity.
Right.
They already had Hama.
Yeah.
So
you can get 20 different flavors of Snake Eyes, but you can't get,
a
named character.
And an over.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. Unless you want to pay somebody to do a custom, and then it's okay.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe they didn't want to make the different scale for him because he was that much bigger than everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can understand that from a company standpoint.
To get back to your question, the only thing I keep circling back to, I think, is Kenner Superpowers. I did hunt out that original Batmobile, the Hall of Justice, a couple of the core characters, because those were the most fun for me because they harken back to the days of reading comic books.
Yeah.
Those, the
Super action friend features that they had.
All of that
cheesy. Stuff doesn't really. I mean, it was it's like He-Man with a punching action. Almost all of them had that waist twist action.
Yep.
And now you don't get that, so you kind of miss that toyetic part of it.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of gimmicks or giant sized weapons like Kenner did a lot of times, where it's like,
Yeah.
here's this, it has a bang flash or sparky thing. It's like, I don't want that. I just want the character to look like he did in the cartoon or the comic book.
Yeah. And I think Superpowers did a great job of that. They were very much with that time anyway. I mean, if you're looking at them now, that characters have evolved and
they followed the literal DC style guide that was created. So they were very true to.
And I do like that version of Brainiac a lot better than the human style Brainiac that they have now, because it was cool.
Yeah, and the power armor
I
for
know
Lex.
I know the reasons why they've evolved from that, because he looked a little too much like Metallo, so it was always
right. It was confusing.
We gotta make it less confusing for the small ones. So, if you were the only one collecting a line, would you continue to do it?
If I loved it. Like, if everybody stopped collecting 12-inch Joe, and a lot of people have, I'd still have a spot for it in my collection, because they're very tactile. They have the cloth uniforms, the size. When you hold one of these, it's a different experience than any other toy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd say Adventure Team would always have a spot.
Okay. So, all of us as collectors, we all have these collection rules. The rules save us most of the time. Key phrase, most of the time. Like, my rule is you can't buy anything that was more than my first card, and that's, as Cobb's pointed out very many times, $5.49 is a sweet spot.
Fair.
And that's just, in my head, I can't rationalize paying more for something that's small and plastic.
Yeah.
Versus a full-size car that I drove for 2 years. It's just one of those things mentally that I can't get past, but I do think that saves me overall.
Yeah. I mean, there are caveats for certain hardcore items, but yeah, it gets to the point of ridiculousness.
Yeah, I can't in good conscience spend that much money on one single item. Now, if it was a bunch of items and it was spread out over a year, absolutely probably would do that.
Yeah.
But that one single item. So do you have any collection rules for what goes into the lair?
They've changed. I used to have a lot more discretionary income. Being retired, low cost of living here in Guatemala, I had a lot of toy budget. But over the last year, the economy has changed, and my toy budget has shrank. So I'm much more selective. I go for key characters that really matter. Case in point, I just got the Mafex Batman from Nightfall, the Crusader type, the classic blue and gray.
Yeah.
It's a spendy figure. Used to, I'd buy a couple Mafex a year. Now I might buy one. It's got to be the perfect one, and that was one of those. It's like, I'll spend $100 on that. It's worth it. But
Neil Adams influenced Batman.
Oh, I love the Neil Adams era.
Yeah,
the storytelling and the look was just great. That's my favorite.
For whatever reason, I really liked Kelly Jones, and I can't really say why, but it was just so much. It was so much different than everything else that was being put out. And his art is it's weirdly eerie and creepy and fits perfectly for Batman.
I'm like that with like Bernie Wrightson. He did great blacks. He did a lot of cross-hatching, great use of shadow and solid blacks. He did a lot of great horror stuff, whether it was for Creepy or for Swamp Thing. So and that's kind of, I don't like to buy duplicates. Like, I don't need 20 Superman. I don't need 20 Batman. But if it fits a particular art style that I really like Neil Adams, I can justify having certain versions that fit different artist styles. Jim Lee is a good example. The Hush line they've been doing with Mafex, very much Jim Lee inspired. Those are great.
Once I started I used to love Jim Lee. He was like my favorite artist for the longest time. And then I started really looking at his line work, and I'm starting to realize that a lot of his male faces look the same, and a lot of his female faces look the same. And I'm just
That's
like,
true. Yeah.
I at the time, there was that whole, early 90s, mid 90s comic book era. There was nothing like those guys.
Yeah.
And then all of
His
a sudden
use
we got a
of,
lot of those people that are, sprinkling here, sprinkling there of them. And then of course, we had the manga influenced of Madureira,
yes.
and that was a whole new avenue for me because I loved like Voltron and Robotech as a kid. Those are great cartoons.
I love sequential art that makes use that says panels. We don't need those stinking panels. We're just going
Yeah,
to tell the story. We're going to keep it
yeah,
moving. Um, Panels are good when they're needed, but when you can break out of that and make it more dynamic, there's some
yeah,
artists that do that really well.
yeah. And Jim's one of those. He's one of those
Yeah,
fantastic artists. But what it's you could see that kind of influence of those guys and how many people were trying to kind of copy that style.
yeah. And then there's oddballs like Mike Mignola. I hated
Oh,
his artwork at first, but it
yeah.
grew
And it
on me.
grows on you. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
the
You're
more I
like,
read
this
his
this looks like
stories,
something I would draw. And then you start
yeah,
reading and you start enveloping yourself in that world, and you
yep,
see why that style fits.
exactly. It totally fits with the Hellboy and the
Yeah,
BPRD stuff that he did.
yeah,
Bruce Timm's another one. I did
yeah,
not like his art style, but it harkens to a retro nuevo kind of thing. It's like
yeah,
it has elements from Fleischman and those great Superman
yeah.
cartoons from the late 40s
And
ish era.
it's a simple, understated art.
Yeah, it's very minimalist, but it works. And I
Yes.
loved at least the first couple of seasons. The
Yeah.
character designs were great. When they got into some of the newer adventures and they changed the characters, I wasn't. I don't know. They were trying to do more of a Tim Burton thing. It was like
I
I
think
get where they're going.
yeah, and I think they kind of, then they migrated that into, Unlimited and Justice League,
Right.
and that style still carried over even through Superman and everything else, and it was great because
Yeah.
you create this unified kind of theme for everything.
He did a really good job, I think, of creating both Metropolis and Gotham as characters in themselves.
Yeah,
The Art Deco and heavy
yeah,
industrial Gotham, and the bright,
shiny, yeah,
more futuristic Metropolis.
yep,
So even his backgrounds made sense for the world he was building.
yeah. And you got that too, that little bit of, little bit here, a little bit there, and it you got that dynamic
Mhm.
of, you could see why that hero was in that city.
It made sense. Yeah.
It made sense in that universal aspect. So, are there any figures in your collection that stay in box, or is everything out of box?
Everything is out of box with the exception of this. I think this is about the only in box I have not opened. This is an original Action Man Action Force SAS character from
Okay.
Palatoy. Hard to find on card these days. And I love the fact that it's very much the face sculpt is very much, the Action Man, which was based on the original
Yeah.
60s
Yeah.
Joe, shrank down.
Yeah.
It was just a great toy line. This is before they integrated the Hasbro
Yeah.
GI Joe elements.
Five
When it
POA
was,
figures.
yeah, 5 POA. They're
But I think a lot of that
they're
stuff, the Action Force is so creative. They were so creative
yeah,
when they first started with all of their
yeah. The
the
Z
vehicle
Force, the Space
designs,
Force,
the
U
yeah,
Force,
it's just
different
really cool stuff.
elements, and
I can
they're
imagine that that's on card still. I wouldn't take that on card. Yeah.
I'd love to have more of these guys loose. It's not on my budget right now. I was
Yeah.
fortunate to find this one. So yeah, he usually is hanging with my modern Action Force. I usually have him hanging out. I had him down here because we were talking military figures the other day. I love the homage that Bobby did for Desert Rat using the same colors as the original Palatoy. I thought that was a really nice nostalgic touch without going way nostalgia, It's like he's at least acknowledging where the line came from, why people loved Palatoy, So yeah, that's really the only one I'll leave in the box.
Shiny Plastic People has said he missed an hour. Dang it, he'll have to catch the replay. But he wanted to stop in live to let Mr. Largo know he has his playlist ready in case he's called up.
Oh, right on. I will be in touch, sir. Hit me up on Instagram. It's usually the easiest way. We'll schedule something. That's another thing. Just one of those happy accidents of when I had to stop doing as much toy centric stuff because of budgetary changes, looking for different ways to do connections.
Yeah.
Connecting with people who love toys and talking about something not toys. So we talk music, and it's been so much fun just to see what people are interested in, inspired by, their background sounds while they're playing or world building. That's been a lot of fun.
It's an interesting thing. So it's a good way to segue kind of into your lair, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
The dynamic, interesting stuff that you're doing, it's not like anybody else's. Let's be honest. The stuff where you go and you're
better or worse.
You're on tangents that are loosely tied.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see those, you talked to me earlier about going down rabbit holes.
Oh yeah.
It's so easy to go down a rabbit hole nowadays. Unfortunately, we have more information at our hands now than at any other time in human history. And in some ways that's a good thing. In some ways that's a bad thing because most people don't actually use that knowledge, but we won't get into that today.
Yeah, that's fair. I love storytelling, lore, myth. When I was in school, I loved studying sociology and the roots of what people believe, whether it's because of a cautionary tale that was handed down, don't go in the woods because the wolf will eat you, or, why the sun comes up, why it doesn't come up in the winter. I've always found that fascinating, and seeing the common threads in different cultures, why certain peoples will have a belief, and a people that have never touched them on the other side of the world may have a very similar belief. They call it something else, but the mythos, it's like there's something about, from the day we started painting on cave walls to today's digital art, it's like storytelling is a huge part of who we are. It's in our DNA.
Well, it's how we pass lessons.
Yeah.
Without being overly complicated with it. And I think a lot of that is, there's a lot of similarity because I think there's a lot of similarity in the human experience, whether we admit it or not.
Definitely.
We all go through struggles. We all go through good times. We all have, we're not hunting and gathering anymore, so we got to do something with our time, right?
One would hope something constructive. I've talked with you about this off in the green room before. I see toys as avatars, not just of memory or nostalgia, but of something deeper in our psyche. Mm-hmm. There's a reason we love the things we love, and we connect with them in a tactile way. We need to hold it in our hand, move it, play with it. It harkens to something very primal in who we are. And when you start going down those rabbit holes of why do we like these stories, whether it's Joseph Campbell, looking at like the hero with 1,000 faces, big influence on Lucas and others. There is a way to tell story that works because it fits. And when you deviate from that path, when you get artsy and creative and you don't want to go through a three-part story arc, you have a flop at the box office, and then you scratch your head. It's like, there's a reason things work. We need archetypes. Yeah. That's how we roll. So,
I mean, as Jung would say, without the archetypes, you don't have anything underneath. It's devoid of any logical reason for being there.
And a lot of times we don't have a label. We don't know a name to put to a thing, but it's a part of who we are. And Jung, I think, is a good example of a place to dwell and really learn about why you tick the way you do. Yeah. I'm also a fan of some of the Freudian philosophies, especially unheimlich, which is his word for the uncanny, the weird, that wiggy thing in the back of your brain that says something's off. Yeah. So we've been exploring that a little bit. And that came from the uncanny valley. Why some toys you look at, it's like that face just, it
Yeah,
doesn't work.
exactly.
Something's off. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I think now we're to the point, especially with AI and some of the avatars that are coming out, where that
Creep.
uncanny valley moment happens a lot sooner than it used to. You know,
Ugh,
when
yeah.
digital effects first started showing up, and then you could tell the difference between movies and television shows on that. There was a huge divide.
Yes.
It was pretty obvious, and now it's getting closer and closer to each other as those graphics become easier to do. At some point, we're not going to have actors, we're going to have digital avatars
Hmm.
that are going to be, some of the things like they're talking about where they're having these actors sign off their voices.
Yeah. And likeness rights to the point of
Yeah.
like, you may have characters, and we've seen this happen where posthumously Tarkin shows up
Yeah.
in Rogue One. And it was like, I get the idea of having the character there, but it's like, I don't feel right about using deceased actors
Yeah.
in a, it's like there's just something about it. It doesn't rub me right. It hits that Unheimlich really hard.
Yeah. And I think that it's fan service to the point of being a little too far.
I agree. It's like,
So
recast. If you're
I
going to
think it
bring
would
a
have been okay to
character,
find a little bit younger,
yeah,
Peter Cushing like. There's plenty of actors like that. And I mean, honestly, the guy, director, critic, I cannot remember his name for the life of me. He would have been perfect as Tarkin.
yeah, I could see that.
Because
I know, yeah.
there was that look, and he would choose scenes like Cushing would, and it was.
Oh, I love Peter Cushing. One of my favorite team ups is Peter Cushing and the guy that played Dooku. He played Dracula in a lot of the Hammer horror. Yes, thank you, Christopher Lee. Those two, they're Van Helsing and Dracula, or other characters in Hammer horror. They were great friends in real life, and you could tell they had chemistry. They just hung out. When they would put a scene together, everybody else was just background. Those two lit up the room. I love those kind of movies, even if it's a cheesy movie. If they're in it, I'll watch it.
Well, sometimes it's not about the movie itself. Sometimes it's just about the experience of being there.
Yeah. I like being able to escape for an hour and 45 minutes.
Plenty of movies that I've watched, but it's just the experience of being there. It's not the movie that's great. It's not the acting that's great. Sometimes it's just I need something to shut off my brain for a couple hours. Don't care how ridiculous it is. Sometimes the dumber it is, the better.
I like good popcorn fun. One of the downsides to doing YouTube, I find, is my analytical side I can't turn off. So if I'm watching something, I'm picking it apart instead of just enjoying it for what it is. Because I'm like, is there content in this? Is this something that it's like, oh, well, what's the etymology of why they did this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, just shut up and watch the movie, Jim.
And it gets hard sometimes. Because if that's how you think all day, and then you get to that point where it's time to relax and you're not shutting off that part, it can make you go crazy a little bit.
One way I use a relief valve is I have tons of notebooks. I'm constantly writing down things. So if I can put it on paper, it gets it out of my brain for the minute. That helps.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of analog. Write it down.
Yeah. You know what? Honestly, if I could read my own handwriting, I would probably write it down myself. But unfortunately, nerve damage in my hand, and my handwriting sucks.
Yeah. So, well, mine's not great, but I can manage it.
Yeah. So if I write it down, I have to be very, very intentional, very, very slow, and by that point, it gets frustrating.
Yep. That's fair.
I type it, or I'll pick up my phone and I'll do a voice note.
That has been a frustration with my wife. She is native Guatemalan, but she grew up a lot in Belize. She didn't grow up the way we did as far as literacy. She went through school enough to be able to basically read and write, but her English writing is not great. Her Spanish writing is, because it wasn't urgent, especially for girls.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of times I'll tell her to write something, and she'll kind of look at me like, really? It's like, yeah. You can misspell it. I don't care. Just put it on paper because it'll help you remember. She's like, okay. She didn't like it.
I'm trying to help. I promise. I'm
I
just
know.
trying to fix the problem. I am
Yes.
not trying to cause one. So,
Uh,
are there any things that you don't do with your toys right now that you'd like to do?
I want to go on location more.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm just minutes away from a lot of Mayan ruins. Tikal is right up the road. There's several other places here. It's beautiful scenery here. I've become sort of a shut-in, just out of, with the 6 dogs and my 3 plus, adult stuff. I don't get away from the house as much as I want to. And I want to go on location. I want to start making some trips, taking some dollies, and do some outdoor photo shots, not Photoshop. But it's
Photoshop
very
is what you
time
do
consuming.
after the fact.
Right. Yeah, you got to tune it up a little.
You got to give it the shiny.
Yeah. But it's got to be very deliberate. I got to fill up the bins with the bits you want to take, and the scene. I've got a great big old Jeep for my Joes and other stuff. It's not easy to transport on, a tuk-tuk on unpaved roads up a mountain to go take pictures at a ruin, but it can be done. I have to plan that. And it's always
get you a big rucksack and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Plus there's that, I'm not exactly the most outgoing person. And when you're carrying dollies and you're hanging out and other people are taking pictures of ruins and you're there with Joe, they're like, "What the hell are you doing, man?" It's like, shut up, I'm playing with my dollies.
And I think that's one of those. I think as adults we do have that kind of, for lack of a better word, shame.
A little. It's awkward because, again,
it's
here
better
people
now
don't.
than
Yeah.
in the 90s when I was collecting again. It came, that was when I came back to collecting. It was in the 90s, and it was kind of a big thing because Star Wars Power of the Force and some of those, Star Wars Episode 1 was getting ready to come out, and collecting was back in because everybody was trying to find the next, 1977 Star Wars collection so they could make.
Oh Lord, yeah, speculating is terrible.
I
I hate the fact that it's like a lot of the things that as nerds we loved, and they were kind of our thing: comic books, video games, toys. And we weren't the norm, and we kind of liked that. And then it became mainstream, and everybody's like, "Yeah, it's hip, it's cool." It's like, yeah, but you're just a Johnny come lately, man. You don't really love this stuff.
You're the Funko Pop loving guy. Go over there with them. Go over there with them. You're not a toy collector.
Talk
You're
about
Funko Pop guy.
Unheimlich. Something about those dead black eyes. I cannot stand the Funko Pop. It's creepy, man. I don't like it.
I personally do not own any. Now, my daughter has Mo from Wally up here that I guess her husband bought because he likes, that character. Because
they do cover a lot of great characters. I just don't like the style. It's
the chibi style is so weird to me. I mean, I can't do it. I God bless those people who love them. If it makes you happy, go for it. That is a Beanie Baby bubble waiting to blow.
Yeah, and I think it
already kind of has.
Yeah, they have diminished. But
yeah, and the thing is, if you buy a toy specifically just for the value that you think it might have 20 years from now,
bad idea. Yeah.
You're in this for the wrong reasons. If you buy it because you think that in 6 months when nobody can get it, you can get it for 3 or 4 times that price.
And that was a problem with comics when they started doing, 20 different variant covers.
They're still doing it. They're not. That didn't stop.
But it's like
stop. That's never
nobody learned their lesson. Yeah,
that used to drive me crazy because I can remember when I came back to collecting. I think it was X-Men 11, which was the new series by the time I got back into it. So I had to go back, and then I'm looking for one, and I didn't realize at the time that there were 6 different versions of one.
From the Jim Lee run?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a thing.
So I had to go get all 6 versions. Of course, they're all, they're all in good shape. They're all the way that
and then there's the lenticular covers and the holographic covers. I just want a good story.
Yeah. And I loved the Image guys at the beginning.
Yeah,
Then you realize that they can't write for shit.
pretty much. Or draw feet in the case of one particular
Liefeld.
artist.
He would intentionally make shit where you couldn't see the foot.
Yep.
Because it's just awful. And he draws feet worse than me, and that's pretty damn hard. And he's a
Yep.
professional artist. But all of his things had, the whole 90s multiple pouches and everybody bandolier with 12 million things. And I'm like, in what world is that legitimately militaristic? I'm sorry, but if I have to carry that much shit just to go, we in trouble.
It's like, hey, I love cargo pants. Pouches are handy, but when you've got 20 on a bandolier, it's a little, you're not going to be able to move.
Exactly. You got the Batman utility belt, but it's not just a utility belt. It's the bandolier, it's the shoulder straps, and you got the
he was even putting like little pouches on gloves and boots.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing? Knock it off.
Exactly. Who's doing that? What the hell does he have in those? Who needs that many pouches? If you need that many pouches, you're in trouble, bud. I'm just telling you. I don't know how many smoke grenades you could hide in there, but it's probably not very many. So, we all have those favorite lines. So, why don't you give me your top 3 lines?
Wow, that's
a all time.
Tough one. Of all time, Mego superheroes, those were great for what they were for the time. All of the Migos, because they went into Planet of the Apes, they did freaking Dukes of Hazzard, they did everything.
Trek.
Everything and anything, even Happy Days, Star Trek definitely were great. So Mego, as pretty much anything from that 8-inch line, was great.
They did a lot of world building too. For scale at that, they did a lot of world building, considering that when you get to that scale, the world building kind of flops. But they did a lot.
They did a lot with very little.
Yeah,
and they made it work.
A lot of cardboard.
Oh yeah. Hey, cardboard can be fun. Let's see. Modern stuff, definitely Action Force. I'm very much into. I like the construction. I like the storyline. The comics really drew me more into the what they were doing. But they're just good figures.
Honestly, I bought the book. I read 100 pages in, and I just couldn't handle all the grammatical errors anymore. And it shut me down. There's grammar, there's spelling, there's everything, and I'm just like, this is why you need an editor.
Yes. Broken Alliances. It is a good story, but it could use some editing. We've been meaning to review that on the channel, but
I couldn't do it anymore. I read 100 pages in, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's making me insane. Yeah, it's driving me crazy. I can't do it.
I'm hopeful.
Haven't gone back.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we'll see more of the comics in the future, and I know there's a feature film in works. I don't know where in production they are.
We'll see on that one. I don't think he's going to want to go PG-13, and I think they will want to go PG-13.
It's going to be a tough translation, but it's doable.
Yeah.
But I've always said the best G.I. Joe movie we never got was Predator, the original.
Yeah. Well, I would say Megaforce is the best G.I. Joe movie we never got.
That's fair. That was a good one.
It's pretty close to the cheesy kind of thing that you would think. If you were going to make G.I. Joe in the 80s as a live action movie, it would be Megaforce.
Yep. Cool gadgets, cool code names, cheesy story. Yeah, Megaforce. Exactly. That's fair.
And that's really, if you wanted to do it that way, that would be the perfect way to do it. Is do it campy, cheesy, go for the laughs. It's okay.
Absolutely.
And it makes it less threatening. And I think that would be the best way to do it. Because, Cobra Commander was always over the top anyway.
Very much.
Lean into it. Lean heavily into it. I don't need him to be scary. I need him to be insane.
Very much, over the top wrestling villain. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, does the lore kind of influence you as far as your collection goes? Does that make a huge impact? Because you come back to Action Force, the comics, and the lore of that.
I do.
So, when it changes, does that kind of affect things too? So, let's say that Bobby strips all of that out later.
It would definitely diminish my desire.
Yeah.
It's similar with like G.I. Joe. I love the Marvel line of comic books, Larry Hama's run. Some of the IDW stuff was good. I haven't read some of the new Energon stuff that's out, but I've
It's
heard that's good.
I've enjoyed it for what it is. I've read like the first 3 issues of Duke and the first 3 issues of Cobra Commander, and
Okay.
I was impressed. It was not what I was expecting, but I think it's a good way to kind of tie those two universes together. It's got that nice bridging kind of feel to it, where you kind of see that, oh, this is where they're going. Okay,
Okay.
I can see this.
There's potential.
It has potential, and I think that's because Kirkman is directly involved.
Cool.
He's
That's,
if one thing Kirkman can do, he can tell a story, and he can
yeah.
tell usually beginning, middle, and end until somebody else gets involved. And we won't get into the series, but
Right.
that comic run. I hate zombies. I will tell you, I am not a zombie.
They never used the word zombie in Walking
They
Dead.
didn't, but I love.
But that's what they were.
That the first 6,
Yeah.
I went back and got the trade paperback of the first, part of that series, and that is by far one of the most heart-wrenching
Oh yeah.
kind of
And
feelings when you read that, and you just see the broken humanity that is those people. And when he says, "We are the Walking Dead," you
feel it. And putting that in black and white totally made sense.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very much to me reminiscent of some of the great EC horror comics.
Yeah, it's very Romero. It's very
yes. So yeah,
So-
good storytelling is important. As far as tie-ins, to me, the best toy lines, they have a trifecta. You have a really good core group of figures. You have a tie-in in media, be it a cartoon or comic book or both, and some sort of either playset and or vehicle that ties the line together. That central showpiece you put on the shelf, whether it's
the world,
yeah, whether it's Eternia or the Hall of Justice, there's that thing that is the focal point, and then you build around it. So those are the things I like in a toy line. So with Delta 17, I'm really excited. There's a comic coming.
Yeah.
They've really got a great idea for story behind the factions. The O-ring figures are cool. They are the best things I loved about the 3.75 Joes done better, done with more modern styling, sculpting, modern weaponry, but still 5 minutes in the future kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I look for that when I look for a toy line that I'm going to dive into. Monster Force is another one. Great storyline ideas and hearkening to what I loved about Hammer Horror and classic monster stories tied in with a modern twist. It's not just a crazy mummy and rags. It's the hidden king. He's this real threat. Dracula is a reluctant hero, but he's the anti-hero. He's still a villain, but it's like, I'm bad, but this guy's worse. So I'll kind of help you out,
Well, and the thing is that I think somewhere along the line that'll end up shifting and Dracula will take over as the bad guy. I have a feeling that that's where it'll go.
It could happen. I could totally love it. And they're
going
to give us a Sasquatch. Any line that gives me a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, I'm there. So I love it.
Well, it's a Sasquatch with a Gatling gun. So
yeah,
you can't go wrong with that.
Yes, please.
That visual.
I know. I love it.
And it's some of the stuff that they've done. And I'm glad that somebody else is doing a 112 line that's not specifically superheroes or specifically military. It's that nice middle of the road kind of thing.
Yeah. And I like the fact that Fresh Monkey also is trying to cater to two scales. They're doing 4-inch and they're doing the 1/12 scale because they know that there's collectors who like both of those.
Yeah.
They're doing some great homage. They're doing some great stuff that even touches to Adventure Team with their Eagle Force.
Yep.
They're doing some great stuff.
And the only thing that's bad is that they're technically not a company. They're kind of a collection of designers that they get together. And that's one of the reasons why it takes so long. And I think people don't understand that they're not a toy company manufacturer.
Right. It's almost like a consortium with Zynka and Big Bad. And it's like, I hate the fact that I don't like their pre-order model where it's like, here's what we want to do. Here's a render. Pre-order it 2 to 3 years ahead of time,
Yeah.
and we'll eventually get to it. It's like
Yeah.
I just sell me the plastic, man. Don't
Yeah.
make me wait 3 years.
I just,
I understand
I
why I don't like
yeah,
it.
yeah. And I can see if they want to make it, they're going to pay for the tooling for it, so they have to
Sure.
kind of have that money
They do
pre in their
eventually.
heads.
So far, they do eventually deliver. When they
Yeah,
deliver, the quality is there. But
exactly.
yes, there's a lot of waiting.
Yeah.
That is a downside to smaller companies trying to get into a factory. It's tough.
So, are there any figures that you're missing in your collection that you want to get?
There are. I'm missing a lot of the Series 4 for Action Force. I just haven't had the cash. Series 5 is now out. I'm behind on that. I didn't order the Vanguard. I just don't have the cash right now. As far as
Okay,
like,
you're only missing coffee cup holders.
yeah, gotta have those. Everybody needs a soccer mom van.
I'm sorry. In what military world are they going to have coffee cups?
Hey, coffee keeps the military running, buddy.
Yeah, but it's not
But
cups, man. It's thermos.
right.
Let's be honest.
That's true. To be fair, the Vanguard is based on a civilian vehicle that is
Yeah.
supposed to be for security. It is meant to
Yeah.
look like a civilian vehicle. It's not meant to look like a military vehicle. So it is what it is.
I would have been more interested in it if it had been the stylish kind of thing, but
I would have rather
if it looks like the car I drive every day,
yeah.
I can't.
I would.
I can't.
I like.
I can't
Yeah, I like my
$200 on the car I drive every day.
exactly. It's like I like the Humvee I have. It's a very military vehicle. It's a little outdated these days. There's the MRAP. There's other troop transports that are more modern. I would have liked to have seen that be the primary vehicle, but I get it. He likes the Vanguard. It is a cool vehicle, and it's if you're doing undercover work and you want to be under the radar, that's the vehicle. Which supposedly they are a covert team in his Faliverse. So I can justify it, but yeah, it's a soccer mom van. It wouldn't have been my first choice.
Yeah, no, it is. So,
but yeah, other than that, there's some monster stuff I'd like to add to the collection. There's so much third-party stuff coming out. It's spendy. It's hard to get a hold of, but the sculpts are amazing. I got some dire wolves a couple of years ago. I have a Godzilla because my friend Grindhead Jim kind of got me into that. Mostly I got into the movies, so I haven't started collecting the kaiju just because it's like I didn't want to go down another rabbit hole. I got a Godzilla because you got to have one.
Our friends are good at enabling us.
Yes.
In a bad way. In a very bad way.
Yes, I try to live vicariously through their collections because my wallet can't handle it.
For my AWOC collection.
Yeah.
Flat out.
Cosmic Legions I haven't touched. Yeah. I love Mythic Legions. I have a couple, mostly the figure Obscura, but I can't afford that whole line. It's too much.
Yeah. And there's too many lines vying for our attention, and that's the collector's dilemma. Is where do we decide that it looks good, but I just can't do it. There's a lot of the lines that I'm that way. So I'm very much where it's like I love the look, but this isn't financially rational for me to get.
Right, and there's shelf space too.
Yeah,
the lair is not infinite. I've got several shelves here. I have a glass case upstairs where I have most of the mezcos just to keep the dust off of them. But yeah, space is limited. So I'm at that point now. If I bring in something new, something else has to either go in a bin or get sold or passed on to another collector. There's no space. And I don't like collecting where everything's in a bin. It's like, why do I have all this stuff?
Yeah, exactly. If you have to box it, Joe is saying
I love Legions. Yeah, they're beautiful. But
they're beautiful figures. If you can get them on the pre-order, that's the best price. Yeah, and that's the trick. And
or at conventions sometimes you can catch some deals.
Yeah, you'll get them at their price. If they're there officially, you'll get them at their reasonable price.
I have a few of their skeletons. I love their skeleton sculpts they've done over the years. Like I said, I have some of the figure Obscura. Headless Horseman's probably one of my favorite they've done recently.
Sun Wukong is my favorite figure in the figure Obscura so far. I mean, there's just something about that.
Yeah.
I love the screaming face, and it's one of those things that I was like, if AWOC had those, I would be really in trouble with AWOC heads.
Oh man, yeah. I'm
That's
waiting
that's what I
for
imagine. That
oh
ape monkey
what yeah what is the new one that
lion.
AWOC's coming out? The Void, kind of the wolf with some mechanical bits.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one I'm looking forward to with AWOC. That's I'm a sucker for werewolves, dogs, and robots, and that one's kind of trifecta.
All three? Yeah. It's all three. You know what it is you want, sir. You get all three.
Yeah.
So one of the bigger questions that I ask is why toys? As a grown man, we can collect anything rationally with our money that we want. But why toys for you specifically?
Tactile, being able to have something, I don't want a sculpture, I don't want a painting, although I have some of each, but something about the movable fighting man, putting them in figures, putting them into situations, doing toy photography. I love having something to tinker with and move. So yeah, it's definitely that articulated sculpture thing. Yeah.
So which figures in your favorite lines do you consider the worst?
Ooh, that's a good one. Huh. I would have to say with some of the like classic Joe, some of like the early Mike Power, as much as I love the figure with the Atomic Man kind of thing, they don't age well. The construction, again, because you're a lot of clear plastic pieces, they get fragile over the years. That's one they never did a modern design of. We've seen him in like and the 4-inch guys. There's a line that recently came out. Strike Force Alpha did an homage to an Atomic Mike.
Yeah, I got it.
And a Bullet Man kind of style. I love that kind of stuff. So seeing modern interpretations and homages in a better construction. So yeah, I'd say that just because of the construction style, some things don't age well. That's a tough one. There were some things like in the Superpowers. I love the Superpowers line, but like the third wave when they got to doing like Mr. Freeze and some of the designs they chose were not classic. They were kind of goofy.
Yeah.
They got into a lot of the Kirby Fourth World, Darkseid and his minion stuff. It's like, I don't want those guys. I want, the Rogues Gallery villains, Give me the Riddler. Give me, the Trickster for Flash. Give me those guys.
So. The cartoony, the caricature ones.
Yeah.
So all of us that collect, we all have these regrets and remorse when we buy something sometimes.
Ooh, yeah.
Have you had any buyer's regrets or remorse with your collection?
I gave Toddy Mac a try, bless his heart. I do like his new Superpowers line. It's not the same as the old, but he's done pretty well with that. I liked his Batman 66. The articulation sucks, but the sculpts and having the likeness, I got a King Tut from the old Batman TV show. Nobody else gave us that.
Yeah.
But his other multiverse stuff, or DC multiverse, I'm so disappointed with some of the other classic characters I want in my collection. He's the only game in town, unless you want to go to Mofex, and they only do select characters, usually Batman or Superman centric, or Marvel. I would love to see Toddy Mac do better on his articulation.
Yeah.
Because he's doing the characters we want.
Yeah.
It's just whoever he has put in the
all
articulation.
The plastic is like, it's this big chunk of plastic. I mean, they're heavy. Even the regular 7-inch are really heavy. And I'm just like, if I throw this at somebody's dying. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't need this big chunk. You hollow it out a little bit. I don't know what you need to do there, but that's all.
He's so adamant on doing things his way. It's like, I know that everybody wants these to be 6-inch, but I'm going 7-inch because I'm cool. It's like, you're a jerk.
You just want to
Now
piss
it won't.
everybody off and make everybody get an extra scale. That's how it is.
Yeah. It's like, you want us to rebuy a line that we've already been collecting from Mattel forever? No,
Yeah,
thank you.
exactly. Well,
Yeah,
you'll get your
that's a pet peeve.
65 Batmans, 412 Supermans.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need Rainbow Batman. I just want, one or two good ones from great storylines. Yeah, he goes a little overboard on the bat.
Yeah. It's Batman, Superman. I'm surprised we haven't really gotten more Wonder Woman, but I know in his head he hates women characters.
He
So
doesn't like making, girl dolls don't sell. It's like, yeah, they do.
okay, they do, but you got to get the right ones.
It's like, buddy, give me a Batgirl, a Supergirl, give me Zatanna. I'll buy them all day. If you make a good sculpt and they don't look like a dude in drag.
Give me a cheetah, give me a giganta,
Yeah,
give me
exactly.
give me the Super Friends circa
Plus,
1980s.
yeah,
I will be
yeah,
all in.
that was a great thing with Mattel. We were able to put together the Legion of Supervillains kind of thing, the Legion of Doom, because they made those characters. Those were fun.
Yeah.
So
all of us kind of with toys, and that will, with anything that we do, we experience burnout where we're no longer enthusiastic about the things that we're doing. Do you ever get to that point where you're just like, I'm done collecting for a while? I don't see the point in it. It's not.
I'm kind of there at the moment, just because, I haven't quit collecting altogether, but I don't collect as much. Part of it financial, part of it the hassle of going through shipping and customs to get things here.
Yeah.
And part of it, I hate chasing exclusives.
Yeah.
When you make something, an exclusive for a particular store, and that store is not in my area and their online presence sucks for trying to order, it really takes the wind out of your sails for collecting. And even if you do get it, it's like, yeah, that was 6 months ago. Do I still care? Kind of.
Maybe not. Yeah. That disparity between the initial excitement and the delivery.
Yeah.
Longer it goes, the less excited you're like, oh.
Right.
It's always interesting. Like, if I'm thinking about everything that I have currently that's outstanding, and I'm like, am I going to want this?
There's stuff I've ordered on pre-order, totally forgot, and then it pops up in my pile of loot, and it's like, oh shit, that was 2 years ago. Yeah, I did want this 2 years ago. Do I want it now? Because it's here. Yeah, kind of.
It's always like, my excitement is tempered a little bit since then.
I hate to pick on Toddy, Uncle Todd, the Toddster, but the Tumbler. Yeah. I like Batmobiles. I have a large collection of Batmobiles. I like them in any scale if I have the shelf space. He's doing the Tumbler, and he said, oh, here's the camo one. We'll do that one wide release. But the black one that everybody really wants with Lucius Fox, yeah, let's make that an exclusive made of unattainium that you can't order because it'll sell out in 5 seconds. It's like, I hate that.
It can be frustrating, and
yes,
there's ways around that.
Sure. Yeah, that's probably what I'll do.
Get you some tape, get you some paper, and go to town.
Flat black paint is cheap.
Exactly. So you kind of wanted to talk about a couple things, but and honestly, it's been almost 2 hours.
Time flies.
2 hours. My brain is a little mushy right now. So there were 2 things or a couple things that you wanted to kind of touch on, and I know we kind of briefly touched on.
Yeah. We've kind of gone around there. For me, yeah, toys is part of therapy, like you preach. Yeah. Not preach, but indoors.
Honestly, I would tell anybody if they're looking for something, they need to find what resonates with them. And
sure,
for those of us in the community that we have, it's toys, and that toys is the gateway to other aspects of our person.
That's fair. That's a good way to put it. I do use toys as a self-medicating coping mechanism for things. Talking about $10 words. I was diagnosed with something called dysthymia when I was younger. Now it's called something else, permanent
mild
persistent
depression. It's still
mild
dysthymia.
depression. Yeah,
It's still dysthymia, but
right.
it's just a pervasive mild depression.
Yeah, it's basically you have a cloud over your head most days.
Yeah.
I can manage, I can function, I can deal with human beings. I just prefer not to because they're exhausting. I'm an introvert.
Well, and if you think about your childhood,
Yeah.
there's a perfectly rational reason why that is.
Oh, sure.
Because you weren't allowed to have those attachments because you
Yeah.
couldn't rationally
And
you could really attach to those, and that creates that dynamic.
right.
Where,
And you learn to create masks and personas to deal. I've had to do a lot of public speaking in different positions. You have to deal with people and learn to do that successfully to move ahead in some careers, but it takes a lot of energy.
yeah.
And as an
Well,
older
I
curmudgeon,
have a T-shirt that says "I used to be a people person and people ruined it."
yeah, yes, like
It's the perfect salve for
exactly. I think
exactly.
Carlin made a good joke of that. It's like individual people are great, crowds suck. When you get
Yeah.
people into groups, it's terrible.
Mob mentality.
Yes. So yeah, I use toys as some ways to escape, to deal with other things. I really
Like with
enjoy the
the inner
community.
gym child.
Yeah, yeah. The storyteller who wants to be there. Um, the toy online community for me is important, and I like using the word community. For some people, that's become a dirty word because certain Facebook groups and certain bad actors, they get into the weeds of, well, I like this plastic, and if you don't like it my way and you don't collect it
Yeah.
my way, you're wrong. It's like, well, that's dumb, and I don't like you, and I don't want to talk to you because there's 20 other people out here I can hang out with that are a lot cooler. So
Yeah.
I don't like the fighting and the drama,
Yeah.
and some of the stuff is just, it does take some of the fun out of it. I try to avoid that if I can.
Yeah.
When friends of mine get attacked, I will speak up for them if I think they're in the right.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get into the drama. I just want to enjoy toys and talk to people about enjoying toys or making dioramas or doing fun stuff. Otherwise, why are we doing it?
It's my big belief is if you no longer have fun or you're not enjoying yourself, stop doing it. It's
Yeah,
very much like the guy going to the doctor and he goes, "Doctor, every time I do this, it hurts." And the doctor looks at him and goes, "Why are you doing it then?"
right. Every time I stick my face in a fan, I get this funny feeling on the tip of my nose. It's like,
Then stop doing it. I mean, it's one of those things. It's a logical thing, but I
yeah,
I think because people invest so much in it, they
yeah.
get too entrenched into that whatever mentality it is that got them into it, and they
And
can't figure out a
yeah,
way to be
you can be
open
fun. Yeah,
to the new experience.
there's a need to be part of a tribe.
Yeah.
Call it what you will, and sometimes those tribes can be toxic because they get into things that don't bring joy to the group.
Yeah, they don't. If it becomes hard and it becomes difficult, and you're no longer feeling that enthusiasm,
Mhm.
that burnout is really going to come on quickly because you're not getting your needs met in that situation.
Yeah,
You're meeting someone else's needs, and over time, that wears you out.
and I find being a content creator that can happen. I do get burnout areas where I've got great ideas. I've got notebooks full of stories I want to do. Life gets in the way, whether it be electrical issues or, the dishwasher broke or,
Yeah,
fill in the blank. As an adult, there's always something in the house that needs attention. It can be really what gave me joy in creating stories and going into lore can be exhausting when you're doing it because you feel like you're chasing your own tail, where it's like,
yeah.
I wanted to put out this much content this month. I didn't get to it. Schedule got,
At that point, it stops being fun
yeah. And
because
sometimes,
it's for fun. When we do this, we should be doing it for fun. If
yeah.
we're doing it because we're chasing a number or we're chasing, some other creator, and it loses its authenticity, I think, when we get to that point.
And I think it's okay to take a break.
Yeah.
Um, I've several creators have taken hiatuses. Either they take the summer off to spend with family, or they take a winter off because they got the blues or whatever.
Yeah.
Do that. You got to charge your batteries,
Yeah.
especially if you want to be creative. You know, you can't always be on. I envy guys that have a tech staff and they can get on every week
Yeah.
and produce something that's cool. I'm not that guy. I'm just one guy with a dumb laptop and a couple of ideas, and I try to put something together, but it's exhausting, and editing sucks. It can take a lot of time.
If you make me edit, it's like when I did the Power of the Force thing for Lawrence, I'm like, I'll do it.
Never again.
But you should know there's a reason why there's no other content but lives, the most part, on my channel.
Yeah.
I hate editing with the fiery passion of a million suns.
I like editing in the sense that you can concisely tell a good story and cut some of the fat. I do like the stream of consciousness idea of doing live streams, but it's hard with time zones and things to get everybody together.
That logistics is always interesting. Yeah.
I hate it.
So as we get to the end, I've got a couple more questions, and then I have my own personal announcement.
Okay.
There's the magic question in psychology, is that if all of your problems went away today, what would you do and why? So for toy collectors, and any collector in and of itself, it doesn't necessarily have to be toys, the two main things that we have as barriers is first financial, so money, and space. So if space and money were no longer a barrier for Jim Largo, what would he buy and why?
I think I would like to redesign the layer to have more of an organic flow, where the shelves are true dioramas, more sculpted pieces. You know, make a whole freaking bat cave with, you know, sculpted walls and parking for all the Batmobiles.
Bat computer and
I'd like to have more diorama stuff. I have
a big dinosaur in there and a big giant penny
and all that good stuff. I love the dioramas and world building. I'd love to have, you know, more like museumetic type pieces where it's like everything is really super detailed, and it really spotlights the pieces that you enjoy in your collection, gives them an environment to live in. Yeah, that'd be it.
Okay. So one of the last questions that I ask, and it's an important question because as collectors, and we talked about burnout earlier, is there ever a time that you see yourself not collecting, and what would that look like for you?
Soon, and it would be more travel. I live in a beautiful country, and I don't see much of it. I need to get away more. And when you get to the point where your things become more of a burden,
owning you at that point.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I will probably always collect a few pieces here and there that are really near and dear, but I'm not going to pursue whole line collections and having to get the next thing. I'm at a point where I'm almost past FOMO, but it still affects me a little bit.
When the exclusives are getting you, the FOMO is getting you.
Yes, I want to be able to feel free to travel and enjoy more of the things of Guatemala and not worry about
more of the other facets of life.
Yeah, exactly. There's a hammock out there calling my name and a drink with an umbrella in it.
There you go. So my last question, and it's the most important question, and it's one of the reasons that I started doing this, because I wasn't finding joy enough in my life. I make it a point, even in my hardest days, and trust me, right now, it's been the hardest 4 months now, almost, of my life. And I make it a point to at least think of something that brings me joy. So what did you find in joy in today?
It brings me back to this silly wooden mannequin. I found joy in this today because of what it represents, the history of it, the tactile. I remember using these when I was studying drawing. And again,
They're great for getting pose and figuring out how the foot's going to look, or the
Oh, yeah.
arm's going to look, or which way the leg is going to bend.
And yeah, so it's a reminder of happier times when I could just focus on doodling and having fun with that and not worry about, career and stuff. So
Exactly.
I found joy
it's
in
the minute where we're
this.
not having to deal with stuff.
Yeah. Activity and creativity. When I'm doing something creative, or at least getting the creative juices flowing by looking at something and thinking about what it could be, that's where I find joy.
Well, my joy is obviously it's Wednesday, so I got my son tonight. So he's hanging out in the living room. So we get to spend time together. We eat dinner. We just talk about life, and I try to catch up and make sure that he's doing okay. And that's the hardest part, is when we're having those hard conversations. But he's willing to share, and it's cool. It's good that he's willing to come to me with those things. So I'm grateful for that. So that's what I find joy in, is when he's able to open and talk to me about what's bugging him or what's bothering him, and we can have a good, productive conversation about that.
Being a good listener is a skill that many people don't have. So that's great that you can do that.
That's because I try not to be a talker. That's just the antisocial person to me. He's like,
that's fair.
I will sit there and listen to you, and I will try to give you some type of advice at some point. Sometimes I have to ask and clarify: are you wanting advice,
or do you just want to commiserate? Yeah,
you just need to bitch at me and let me have it all, or do you need a solution?
I do that when I talk to people or send them a text. It's like, if you just want to BS or vent, I'm here. If you want suggestions, I can do that too. Dumb looks are always free. I can just give you those all day.
Yeah, exactly. I can give you sarcasm. You want sarcasm? I can give that to you on a silver platter every day, all day. So with that, folks, I want to thank everybody who is tuning in. I want to thank anybody that decides to watch this on replay. I want to let you all know that this will be my last show for a while. I don't know how long. I know I have a guest lined up for the 26th, I believe, but I am going to have to contact him and change that. I want to thank everybody in this community for everything that they've done. I want to thank them for all of the support. I don't think I would have made it the last 4 months without it. And I can say that honestly.
Yeah.
With that, folks, I want to leave you with my final statement. If you can be anything, be kind. Have a good night.